Hey, everybody, happy Wednesday. Thank you for joining us for the third and final day of our Estate Planning Awareness Week events from the National Bar Association Real Property Trust and Estate section. I'm Terrence Quinn. I'm the chair of the Real Property Trust and Estate section of the National Bar Association. You may or may not know that the National Bar Association is the nation's oldest and longest running Black bar association. And it's a dynamic organization. We have some great members of our association, of our organization, and our section, the Real Property Trust and Estate section of the National Bar, is the section that deals with all things estate planning, property, probate, just all of that type of stuff. And this week, being Estate Planning Awareness Week, which was put together, it was authorized by our government, our president several years back, decided and determined that it was important to bring awareness to estate planning in our country. And so they designated a week in October every year, which will be designed to make sure people are aware. Of course, we as estate planning attorneys and property attorneys in the National Bar said, hey, this is our week. This is a week that they set aside for us to make sure that the citizens of our country, the members of our country, the people who live here, are aware of those things that are important in estate planning and property division. So this is what we do, and we wanted to make sure that we provided great information this week as a section of the NBA to those who would listen. Monday, we talked all about wills and trusts and property, dynamic presentation by multiple attorneys from our section. They did an excellent job. It was for the community around the country and attorneys from multiple states. Yesterday, we had a great continuing legal education offering where we had our very own Aquanetta Betts, who's with us again today, as well as Amy Griffin, who's the founder and owner of the Griffin firm. One of her attorneys are with us today as well. They yesterday gave us 20 tips for attorneys on what to do with regard to estate planning and just making sure you're doing things correctly. It was wonderful. Well, today, as we close this out, through the National Bar, we always want to make sure we provide information to everyone. And today's session is all about building wealth in the Black community, estate planning and wealth building in the Black community. And I'm excited about this. Been looking forward to this. So with that, what I'm going to do is briefly just say the names of the three people who are here today, and then turn it over to the one who's going to be moderating. We have Aquanetta Betts, who I've already mentioned. I'm going to ask if you'll come on after I say your names. Come on really briefly, just to share where you're from, what you practice, and why you're happy to be here. So Aquanetta, go ahead, and then I'll go to Shakisha next.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Aquanetta Betts. I am in the Baltimore County, Maryland area. I am licensed as an attorney in the state of Maryland and the District of Columbia. I currently am the Senior Executive Director for Plan Giving for World Vision.
Sounds great. Shakisha Morgan is with us. I already referenced one of her colleagues and the founder of her firm was on with us yesterday. Shakisha, can you explain to us who you are, where you are, and why you're happy to be here?
Yes, thank you, Terrence. I'm so excited to be here, everyone. My name is Shakisha Morgan. I am an estate planning, business planning, and probate attorney with the Griffin firm. I'm one of the practice leads at the Griffin firm. I'm currently sitting in Prince George's County, Maryland. I'm a proud Prince George's County native, as well as a descendant of the wonderful, amazing country known as Jamaica. And I am proud to be here and happy to be here and share with you all about Black wealth, representing the 16 women of the Griffin firm that are doing the same.
I love it. When I found out that the Griffin firm had so many women attorneys, just getting it done out there, I was just excited. So we're glad to have you on with us, Shakisha.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, and I didn't mention earlier, I'm out of the state of Michigan, the great state of Michigan in Metro Detroit. No snow has not come yet, and hopefully it won't be here for a while, but hey, it's a great state and I love it, and I want to live here for good. Anyway, just like on Monday, we have another professor with us, and it's the Professor Deanne, who's going to be moderating our session tonight. I'm going to turn it right over to you, Professor, and ask that you come on and introduce yourself, and then I turn the mic over to you for good, and we'll be ready to go.
Great, thank you, Terrence. I am actually from Michigan myself. Spent 25 years in Michigan, Southeast Michigan. So go you of Michiganders. The it's great to be here. I teach in the Charter Advisor and Philanthropy program at the American College, and of course, Aquanetta Betts is a CAP. So lots of connection there. So can't wait to get to know you and Shakisha a little bit more. So Terrence, is it okay if we just jump right in? Because I think the speakers want to, like the listeners would love to learn about
Yes.
all you have to say.
Yes, ma'am. Let's jump right in.
All right, okay. So it's great that we got to know each other. So my first question is, so that we can warm up a little bit, is what's your first memory about money? And we'll start with Aquanetta and then go to Terrence and then Shakisha. So what is your first memory about money?
Yeah, I would say my first memory, and I've been thinking about, this whole conversation. I don't have like one specific moment, but I would say my first memories about money, it goes back to, of course, my childhood. And my family were all hardworking folks, work ethic like no other. Get up every day, go to work and do something. However, I realized early on that there were folks in my school, children, their families. We lived in an area where we were one of few families of color. And so most of the kids at my school, they were white or other ethnicities. But I realized even with my parents' hard work, there were some differences. I didn't understand then why the children lived in huge houses up on the hill. The other children did. Why they vacationed in Europe for 2 months. Yes, we took vacations, but they certainly weren't to Europe for 2 months. And so my first memories of money was that, my parents work really hard. Why is there such a difference? So to me, growing up, I realized money meant to my parents working hard to get a paycheck, to pay the bills. Whereas some of my fellow student colleagues, other kids were well off, really. And I didn't understand that growing up, but certainly now, money, to me, I understand that difference. So it started early on, just trying to figure out why is there such a difference?
Great, thank you. Terrence?
Yeah, I think mine is very similar, almost identical to Aquanetta's. My parents worked very hard and they made a pretty good living. I grew up in Flint, Michigan, and like the real Flint, the Flint that you hear about. That's where I grew up. But I had the opportunity to take classes across town where other people grew up. And so I was always in mixed classes, and I was able to experience the real Flint from a financial perspective. We didn't have a lot of money by any means. And a lot of times there were things that we were unable to do, like vacations or places things we were unable to acquire, and not being able to afford it was often the reason why we weren't able to do that. But however, when I was in school, I would hear about other things that were happening and things that people were able to acquire that I just really couldn't. And they were able to because they were in a different financial situation than I was. So coming up, I just came up with that kind of mindset that you got to work hard, still do right with what you do. However, some can buy, some can't, some can go, some can't. And that was my experience coming up. Great question.
Thank you, Terrence. Shakisha.
Yeah, so I mentioned that my parents are from Jamaica. My family is from Jamaica. They came over here for college, and both of them ended up starting businesses. So my parents owned a few laundromats in Prince George's County. And so as a young girl, I saw my parents doing this entrepreneurial thing, although I didn't have the word for it as a young girl. But because my parents are very entrepreneurial minded, when I was a young girl, my sisters and I have 2 sisters. I'm the middle, but I act like the oldest because I'm the lawyer. My sisters and I had a vending machine. And so that was our first business. So we were in charge of the stocking the vending machine, counting the money, collecting the money. And I was the accountant for the business. And so I had to measure what our profits were looking like, how much it cost for the supplies, how frequently we had to buy them, what were the most popular items to decide like what we were going to sell in the vending machine. And I remember a very specific conversation, always sticks out in my mind, where we were at Sunday dinner and my dad was asking about our profits. And I couldn't talk about them. I didn't have any information for him. And I'm like, I know we're making money, but we don't have any money in our account. And he said that the lesson here is that if you're not tracking it, you can't grow it. And so as from a very young age, I learned how important it was to look at data and to write things down and to talk about money, because that was how you were going to be able to be intentional with money. So, my dad was a CPA, my mom was a nurse, but they were both immigrants from Jamaica, and they worked really hard to build a good life for my sisters and I. And so this was their introduction to us about how important it was to be intentional with money.
Shakisha, that's beautiful. Oh goodness. Since I have you unmuted, let's talk about entrepreneur mindset, CPAs. Why estate planning as a specialty? Because we know estate planners don't make as much money as your M&A attorneys, right? So why estate planning?
Estate planning because that's the missing link. That's the missing link. And it's the missing link that people don't know about. So everybody knows that you should have a budget. That doesn't mean everybody does budget, but it means that everybody knows you should have a budget. Everybody knows that you should have retirement, though everybody doesn't have retirement. Everybody knows that you should be intentional about growing your money, but everybody doesn't know about the legal pitfalls of failing to do proper estate planning and how important estate planning is in the missing link for building wealth, because wealth is not wealth if it doesn't pass from one generation to the other. And it doesn't pass from one generation to the other unless you have an estate plan that enables it to pass from one generation to the other, being intentional with that. And so when I went to law school, I just knew I wanted to help people. I didn't know what that looked like. I started out as an insurance defense litigator. I mean, I enjoyed the competitive sport of it, but it really wasn't doing anything for me. And when all of the things were happening with Tamir Rice, with Michael Brown and all that, I said, I want to turn back into my community. What can I do to help? And I started just looking at different ways that I could help. And I came back to my roots of being intentional about money and all of that. And like, where does the law fit into this? The law fits into it with estate planning, because there are billions of dollars lost every generation when people fail to plan. Money that's left in unclaimed property, money that's tied up in the court system, money that's lost because it's not intentionally passed to family members who will take it and continue to grow it. And so estate planning for me was the missing link. So this is my way of giving back.
Yeah, great. Terrence, Aquanetta, do you want to add to that? I think it's hard to add to that.
Yeah. So, estate planning for me, I really do believe that everyone should have an estate planning attorney in that, in their lives. Everyone should. Now, the way I got into the work, I was doing all kind of, labor and employment law, general litigation, ended up doing a ton of healthcare fraud and abuse litigation. I realized at the firm where I was at the time that if I didn't bring in my own work, that who knows what would happen, because I was getting all my work from the partners. I needed to get my own in. And I said, well, what can I do that I can sell myself right now? And I thought that estate planning was simple. I thought it was, I knew it was more than just putting a name on the document, but I didn't think it could be that complex. And so I said, well, everybody's going to die one day. Why don't I just start talking about wills? I can talk about doing a will. And I took our 3-year course that Michigan has on probate and estate planning. And I learned pretty quickly, first of all, it is complex. And I just got interested in it. Well, once I started doing the work, I thought it was boring until I really got into it and I fell in love with it. And I started to realize that this work that we do as estate planning attorneys is among the most important work that anybody could do on the planet. We're helping people resolve 2 major questions. What happens if you're gone, to your assets and your children? Like, what really will happen to them if you're gone tomorrow? And then number 2, if you can't make decisions for yourself, who would make decisions for you? Those are significantly important And it impacts generations, the work that we do, not just the person we're working with, but generations. And so at the end of my meetings, unlike in the fraud and abuse case or in a general litigation case, at the end of most of my meetings, my clients would do this thing where they would do a sigh of relief. And they would say, almost like clockwork, I'm so glad I got this done. And I realized that I was helping them at their core in a way that they probably couldn't even realize I was helping them. And that was enough for me to hook me in. And so that's it. This is what I do for good.
Akunetta, your career has shifted as well, right?
Yes.
So you have two very different perspectives here.
Yeah, absolutely. Estate planning is certainly at the heart of what I do even today as a philanthropic advisor. I will say a couple of different stories go into my estate planning career. First, my mother at the age of 36 was stricken with a spinal cord illness. She actually became a paraplegic and spent the last 20 years of her life in a wheelchair. And she gained quite a bit of health back. So we did do things, we traveled quite a bit, even in her wheelchair. But I knew early on in life, and at this point, my parents had divorced. So here's a single mom with 3 teenage children, or even a little bit younger. And now she's in a wheelchair. So think about that, 36 years old. You have 3 young children. So I knew early on that sometimes bad things happen to really good people. And I thought, wow, if this could happen to us, my mother, it certainly can happen to other folks out there. So I knew I wanted to help. I knew there was something in me that said, some people, they need to know about what happens if you're disabled and you're 36 years old. Insurance, long-term care, all of that. My mother actually had some through her job. It was very helpful to us. So that to me was a memory that I carry with me. Does a person have long-term care insurance? They're in their 30s, they're probably thinking, I don't need it. Surely we needed it. It helped us a lot. So those were early memories of, I didn't know what estate planning was then, of course, but I just knew that these things, they come up sometimes. And if you're not prepared, you don't have insurance, or you're not thinking, maybe in the future, the effects can be devastating. The other part of it, of course, once I went to law school, I did my last semester as a visiting student at the University of Baltimore. And as an elective, I had to fill a space on my schedule. I took a course, it was Wills, Trust and Estates, just as an elective. Had no real desire to take that course, but it just fit in properly with my schedule. And I fell in love with it. And so here I am. But the other part of it, I will say, came when I started practicing. And I would have hearings with some of my clients. And one particular case, a father had passed away, and he had 3 adult daughters. Each one of them had an attorney at the hearing regarding their father's estate. This was a man who worked so hard, back-breaking work. He actually acquired a couple pieces of real estate. But by the time the daughters finished fighting, what this poor man worked so hard to acquire and actually give to those daughters, there were a few dollars left. And so that gives you more of a full spectrum of my estate planning career, and why I absolutely am passionate about estate planning.
Thank you, Akunetta. And we know not that the stats are out there, right? Estate planning, not a whole lot of people actually go through this process. It's almost like this hesitation or fear of actually doing or going to see the estate planning attorney. So Terrence and Shakisha, can you talk a little bit about your practice, and then maybe share a story too about any of the Black families or clients you work with no names, of course, but just examples of, like, the program is building Black wealth. So let's talk a little bit about Black families, right? What are they worried about? Why do they see you? What's the hesitation?
Yeah. So yeah, a very good portion of my client base is Black people. I do a lot of work in churches, and most of the churches where I do a ton of workshops and webinars, like that's my home. So I do a lot of webinars and workshops for churches, and most of them are predominantly Black. And so they do come to me, and I've realized that there are actually 3 things that they're concerned about. The first is, among the many, they're concerned about whether or not they'll leave conflict or chaos if they die. They want to make sure that their families aren't going to be fighting, like Aquanetta was just talking about, whenever they're gone. And so they come to me and they want to put a plan in place that can do all that it can to eliminate or at least limit the amount of chaos or conflict that'll occur whenever they're gone. They're concerned about whether or not they'll be taken care of on their terms if their health fails. You know, they have a parent that they were the caregiver for. It's very common in my practice that they're providing care. They don't want their mom or their dad to go into a nursing facility. And so when their mom or dad ages, they want to care for them. My grandmother lives with me right now. She's right upstairs, right above where I am right now. She's 92. My parents are here and they're going to move with my sisters this weekend. I'm driving them down to Atlanta so they can move down there because my sisters are going to look out for them. They want to make sure, though, whenever they're in that place, that they can be cared for in the way they want to be cared for and not in the way that other people choose. So those are two of the main things. They want to make sure they have a good attorney by their side to help them as they age, but that's what they're concerned about. And they want to make sure that their family can be advised or informed regarding their wishes and what they wanted to have happen, but also that happens in a way that won't cause chaos and conflict. Those are probably the main things that they come to me about when I meet with them, and I'm seeing that pretty continuously.
Shakisha?
Yeah, Terrence is absolutely right. I'm going to add to that well, one, about, I would say 95% of our clientele is Black families. We serve everybody, but I mean, when you have a firm of 16 Black women, you attract what you look like. So 95% of our clients are Black families. We're happy to do that. And I mean, we know what the stats look like, right? We know that like 70% of Black people die without even a will. So, there is work to be done in the community. So a couple of things that I want to add to what Terrence said is, one, our clients are worried about capability, right? Like when they're thinking about who's going to take over if something happens to them, a lot of times the client who's coming to us is the one that everybody leans on. So when it's time to say, okay, if I am not the one bringing in the money, if I am not the one that everybody can rely on because I've become the vulnerable one or I have passed, who do I look to for that? And so there's a lot of soul searching that happens. I tell people that the estate planning is doing like a life audit. You are looking at who's in your community and who's around you. And for a lot of people, especially if you are the first one in your family who went to college, or you're the first one who got an advanced degree, or you're the first one who's ever made this much money, it's hard to then turn around and say, okay, my sibling or my parent or my niece can do it, because you're kind of the one that everybody else leans on. So there's definitely an issue of capability when our clients come to us. And so there's a lot of soul searching. And sometimes it happens that you end up, choosing a trusted advisor to be the one who steps in, especially when it comes to money matters or estate matters or business, right? Especially business owners. Another thing that clients come to us and we always keep in mind is the culture, because culture makes a difference. There are certain cultural differences that are in the Black community and that are even in other marginalized communities, but manifest differently in the Black community. And I also see a lot of clients who are also Black and foreign. So you add in that layer of culture in there. And so you're talking about things like Terrence mentioned about being the one who's caring for your parents or your grandparents. And like, what does that mean when you're doing estate planning? Because then it's not just about you being vulnerable, but everyone else you're taking care of, about them possibly being vulnerable as well. There is also kind of this issue about, it's not an issue, it's the challenge of mindset. A lot of people will come to us, and because money has not been talked about in their family, because wills have not been talked about in their family, there's a huge lack of knowledge in the community. So when we're working with clients where this is their first foray into knowing anything about estate planning, we are not just preparing their estate plans, but we're also educating them. And then we're also encouraging them to be the catalyst for education in their families. One of my favorite stories was we did an estate plan for someone, and then they brought us their parents. and then they made their children come. And so there was like this multi-generational estate planning thing going on. And we've now done it a number of different times. And it really just warms our heart, because it's like, okay, the work is turning over, like there's fruit coming from the work. There's also a family that we're working with right now. And I just love this, because a lot of times, with Black wealth, it has been impacted by things that have nothing to do with us, right? Like Black wealth has been impacted by Jim Crow laws. Black wealth has been impacted by redistricting. Black wealth has been impacted by systemic discrimination. And so when we're thinking about, we have a family right now, they own over 100 acres of undeveloped land in Virginia. And the family has come together and said, we don't want this to go to waste. And so right now we're at the ground level with them, setting up the legal structure that allows their family, so 2, 3, 4, 5 generations into the future, they're going to benefit from the commercial and residential use of this land. And it's going to be wealth in their family, which is going to provide for education and provide for housing and provide a respite from the world, because they all want to go, and have fun in their residential compound on their family land. Like, these are the kind of things that make it so exciting to work within our community and see the difference that it's going to make from generation to generation to build wealth.
Well, that's amazing, Shakisha. Like, to be able to see them and work with multi-generational clients and be involved with them multi-decades, right? With the firm. That's amazing. Yeah. Terrence Aquinetta, do you want to add to that? Because I want to dive in a little bit into this cultural nuance piece of working with Black families. I know there is something there, but it'd be great to help the audience like understand that a little bit more and unpack that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I agree with everything that Shakisha was saying. One of the things that I see in my client base, as I in my mind compare the Black community within my client base to other cultures, just the different types of assets and the amounts of assets. I was thinking a lot about this morning. Actually, clients I met with just before this, I was having a conversation with them about this and how I see a difference in the types and amounts of the assets. And of course, there's aberrations from this this generalization that I'm making right now. However, it's pretty common that the types of assets that other cultures would have versus the Black community are different in volume and type. So whereas some of my Caucasian clients might have extra property other than their home, it may be a cottage up north in northern Michigan or something like that. If my Black clients have extra property, which happens in a lot of cases, but if they do, more times it's investment property and they're trying to get it going, which is great. We're seeing that we need to build wealth, and we're looking to do that and increase that in a great way. My clients may have, some of my non-Black clients might have gotten a big boost from their parents as far as insurance benefits or just other asset support with down payments on properties and things. And my Black clients may not have had that more times than not. And remember, I'm not suggesting that this is the only way it happens. I have many clients who change the dynamic of this. However, if I'm really comparing assets, since we're talking about wealth, this is what I'm seeing more times than not. And so I'm happy to see that clients are coming in to have these discussions. And this is another reason why I think estate planning attorneys are great in the lives of everyone, because a real estate planning attorney should be able to have these conversations beyond just who gets everything and beyond just who should be your agent under a power of attorney, but should be connected with life insurance agents, strong financial advisors, strong accountants and tax preparers, and can plug you into these professionals who will help you build a world and a plan for yourself and for the generations to follow that can really make a major difference, which ends up impacting communities and ultimately will be a major impact for the world. But these are some of the differences just from an economics and finance and asset perspective that I'm seeing.
I'll chime in.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll chime in a bit here. Yes, the cultural nuances, the things that I think are important for advisors to certainly understand. would be, as Shakisha mentioned, there's a lack in many of our communities of having those conversations around the dinner table about money. And so advisors should know that the money that we do have in our families, in our communities, we do not discuss these things. Sometimes parents will even tell you, oh, don't bring that up. Don't even talk about money here at the dinner table. And so young folks haven't had those conversations. Now they're working, they're accumulating assets, but they're not familiar with financial advisors because their parents didn't have them. And so advisors need to understand that certainly there are cultural nuances there, but the trust factor has to be gained also because they don't have that family connection with an advisor. Mom and dad can't pick up the phone because they don't have one and say, oh, my son is looking at, purchasing a property, or he's looking at setting up some sort of financial account. So there's no background there for many people of color in the Black community. So advisors should be well aware of that. And the trust issue is very important. Oftentimes I would get many of my referrals when I was doing estate planning work. They would certainly come from other clients, which is not unusual, but in the Black community, it would be, I think, even more common. Folks would say, oh, I went to see an attorney the other day, I got a will prepared or something like that. And they would, of course, ask, well, who did the work for you? And that's how it would get clients. So trust is huge, I would say, in our communities. And we haven't always had those advisors, as part of the picture. So I think advisors need to be aware of that. Building trust with our community, I think, is very, very important.
Yeah, Terrence, you want to add on that? Because that's,
yes, I
okay.
do. Aquanetta is making an excellent point. And I'm glad Terrence started it and Aquanetta built on it. And I want to come back and circle around. And I just want to say to the advisors that this is so important, right? When you understand the cultural nuances of working with Black families and building Black wealth, you have to understand that you as an advisor should be a catalyst. So like when I meet with my clients as an estate planner, I am going to ask them, do you have a financial advisor? Oh, you're interested in real estate. Do you have a real estate advisor? Oh, you're interested in learning better about budgeting. Do you have a whatever, or you have a business? Do you have a good tax accountant? And I'm going to ask those questions because I'm going to be a facilitator to connect them with the other pieces, because estate planning is not the only thing to do to build wealth. Financial planning is not the only thing to do to build wealth. Real estate is not the only way. So we're all connectors. And so when Aquanetta is talking about that trust is definitely going to come from you being able to say, here is how I contribute to this part of your wealth building. And now I'm going to connect you with someone else that's going to continue with the wealth building. So, if I tell people that if your financial advisor has never talked to you about estate planning, there is a gap in the service right there, right? Because what is the point of building money to not make sure that it also intentionally passes on? So be that connector, be that catalyst so that we can move our clients around to all of the service-based providers who are going to help them to continue to build this Black wealth.
Yeah, one of the things for me that surprises me, and maybe everybody else is seeing this, but I'm not, surprises me how it is not common, or how uncommon it is for financial advising houses or firms to bring in estate planning attorneys to share information that we're talking about right now, right? I think the perfect situation for every client, and certainly one major way as we're talking about this trust factor, to build trust, and let me zero in specifically within the Black community, is to show that you really have their interest, their best interest at heart, right? And so how better to do that other than to help point them fully towards their goals? We all, in all of our professions, approach potential clients saying that we want to help you reach your goals. If I've heard financial advisors say this once, I've heard it said a million times. We want to help you figure out your goals and go for it. So I don't want to say it that way. Advisors certainly should know and will know that estate planning attorneys have to be a critical and crucial part in reaching those goals. And so there should be a collaborative approach on all of our parts for our clients, all in the middle of my meeting, as I'm looking at their life insurance portion of their asset base. If I see, in my opinion, and I'm not a financial advisor, that they may be underinsured, I'm having a conversation with them about why they should consider increasing their insurance. So if I see they don't have long-term care insurance, I'm having a conversation in my intake meeting with them about that. And then what I do immediately, if they're interested in a referral, I will call the referral in the middle of my meeting just to do an introduction. I tell them I'm sitting with a client. I just wanted you all to meet. You all can take it from here. And then if they choose that advisor, they go ahead and do that. Why am I doing that? Because I am really committed to helping them build, maintain, protect, and properly leave their assets, their wealth and their assets. How better to do that than to have all the experts at the table when we can?
Yeah, I love the connector, facilitator, the trusted advisor concept, right? And I think in the BIPOC communities, this is much more pronounced, right? So Terrence, it was a great example. You made the referral of the client on the spot there. How do you find the people that you trust, the advisors that you trust for your clients?
Yeah.
How do you build this community?
That's a great question. So for years, I don't even remember where I learned to start doing this. It just made sense to me. I just meet with people. I have financial advisors reaching out to me all the time, and I'll meet with almost any of them unless I have reasons to believe that there's a lack of integrity in one way or another, or a lack of knowledge in how to approach their work. And even with them, I'll meet with them, but just work with them myself until they get up to speed with knowledge. But I just meet with a lot of people and talk to them, and I vet them for myself. Would I want to sit with this person and allow them to advise me? Would I feel comfortable sending my mom or my wife? If I weren't here, would I be okay telling my wife, when I'm not here, go see this person if I'm gone? And I just pay attention to their track record. I'm real big also on the company that they're with. At this point in my career, I'm familiar with the companies in general that I trust because of their track record. And then I know at this point, I know the training that they get within those companies. And so I can tell, are they just trying to sell my clients something? Are they going to do that? Or are they really going to tell them what they really need and even turn them away? If they already have enough of this type of asset, are they courageous and confident enough to say, you know what, you don't need any more of that. Let's look at this. And so as I'm meeting with them and talking with them, I'm trying to find out what their goals are. I'm hearing their conversation, and I'm getting the feel for who the person is at their core. And then that lets me know, am I willing to put my reputation on the line to refer them? The most important thing to me is, well, I guess is both my reputation myself, but then also whether or not this client is going to be served correctly. I am fully committed to helping them properly build, maintain, protect, and leave their estate. And these advisors help me do that. I feel, last thing real quick on this point, I feel like, as I said earlier, the estate planning attorney is the most important professional that they will have in their lives. And we're the one person in their life that has to know everything about them. We have to know their asset base. We have to know their family secrets. We have to know their health. We don't have to know their blood type necessarily, but we have to know if there are health issues going on, because we're the ones who have to deal with all of that as different events arise in their lifetimes. And so we should be at the center, I think, helping identify these other experts that are going to come help us, help them reach their goals.
That's great. Shakisha, all women firm. How do you find the partners, the referral sources?
Well, similar to Terrence, right? So a lot of people reach out. I also, I was very intentional about the way that I did my LinkedIn profile, so that if people were looking for someone like me, they could easily find me. I also, try to participate a lot on social media. When there are conversations about money, I pop in, like, okay, don't forget about the estate planning. Just last night, I saw someone who is starting a money podcast and asked, what conversation should I talk about? And I said, you have to talk about estate planning. And the person replied to me and said, you know what, I don't know anything about that. And you're right, I should talk about it. I was like, yeah, you should. And you should call me when you're ready to, because these are the sort of things, right? And so when people reach out, or when I meet with people similar to Terrence, but I have a very specific things. It's very specific things that I'm looking for, because since I do primarily serve Black clients, I'm looking for people who are aligned in values. And so I'm also looking for people who are aligned in the team approach. So if it's, when they are, I ask the financial planner about their process. Like, okay, walk me through your whole process with a client. And if they never say anything about estate planning, that person doesn't become my partner. I tell them that they should include estate planning as for their clients. They should include an estate planning connect for their clients. And then I thank them for their time. Because for me, if you don't already have that on your radar, I need my clients to be served by people who see how important my role is, or someone like me, our role is in the wealth building space. And so, that's a key for me. I asked about the process, and if it's not in the process, that's not that's not the partnership that helps to serve my clients in the way they need to be served. But yeah, I'm always trying to push things out into the community, and also trying to in the COVID world, networking is a little different, but you try to do as much networking as you can online to really just we just really recognize the value of all of us serving the clients together. My boss, Amy Griffin, we've come up with this idea of a life and legacy council, because Terrence is so right. I tell my clients in their initial meeting that you had a best friend, but I'm your new best friend, because your best friend could possibly tell your secrets. I'm bound by law to never tell your secrets. So I need you to find this space safe, because I need to know everything. And if the blood type is going to matter, I do ask them for the blood type. I'm just kidding. But it makes our service of clients so much better, because it's true. We're planning for everything. Yes. And we're making sure that no matter what happens, there's a legal plan in place that allows someone to step in quickly and get the job done.
I love the comment you made, all of us serving the client together. And aside from the estate planner, the financial planner, the insurance agent, we also have the philanthropic advisor, right? Because the Black community is one of the most philanthropic communities, right? So I'd like to pull you into this conversation. What trends are you seeing? And what kind of tools, I would say charitable tools, are you seeing being used?
Yeah, the trends that are going on right now around us, of course, a lot of them are a result of the pandemic, giving in that way, and also around the idea of George Floyd's killing and the whole social justice movement. So those are trends where folks are giving, Blacks and people of color. They've galvanized around those ideas in particular. Giving collectively, of course, crowdfunding has always been something that's been going on for the last few years, but also collectively, giving circles are big within Black communities. And I think that goes back to, again, trusting an organization or a group of people. And in that case, they're giving circles that are people that look like them, instead of giving to other organizations that are already in existence. So those are some of the trends. I would say, as you mentioned, Deanne, that Blacks are some of the most philanthropic people you'll ever find. So the charitable giving, that giving spirit, that heart, it's there. What is clear, and there's certainly research on it, I didn't think we could find it, but Dr. Russell James has provided a pretty good scholarly paper. He has actually a couple of them on charitable giving, charitable bequest in particular, regarding African Americans and Blacks. And what he found is that most Blacks give, and they give first to their religious organizations. And as we all know in our families, that when you have money, income, whatever comes in to your home, to your pocketbook, to your purse, a certain percent of that is supposed to go to that church or that religious organization, period, right? So we give the second organization or charitable cause would be educational institutions. So in this country in particular, you have families where they have connections to our HBCUs that go back for generations. I did not graduate from an HBCU. I attended one my freshman year, Prairie View A&M in Texas, but my sister is a graduate of an HBCU. Just about every other person in my family is a graduate of an HBCU. And I have a story, I'm going to try and keep this short, but I have a story of my third cousin, I believe. He became an anesthesiologist in Los Angeles probably 50, 60 years ago. And he had a great career. But get this, he graduated undergrad from Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. Then he wanted to go to the Medical College of Georgia in his hometown of Augusta. His father, who was also a doctor, who had graduated from Lincoln University, HBCU, and Howard Medical School in 1907, took his son, which is my cousin, into the Medical College of Georgia to talk to the dean in the late 1930s, early 1940s. My great uncle says, "Hi, Dean, here's my son. He is a graduate of Lincoln University. He's done very well. He's qualified to get into the Medical College of Georgia." The dean says, "Oh, great, yes, wonderful. How's everything going? I'll talk to the committee about your son." A few weeks later, the answer from the dean is, "We're just not ready to admit a Black." So the first Black graduate from the Medical College of Georgia's medical school, I believe, is in the 1970s. And this is my hometown. It's a state medical college. So what I'm getting at is Blacks in this country, we have a history. Why do we support HBCUs? They're the places that allowed us to get in. My cousin, who did not get into the Medical College of Georgia, he ended up going to Meharry University Medical School. He practiced as an anesthesiologist in Los Angeles for about 30 years. So what I'm getting at is these are the places that educated our children, our families. I am committed to those schools. I didn't graduate there, but I know their importance and their significance. So religious organizations and educational institutions, those are still the top places where Blacks will give their charitable dollars. So advisors should know that.
I'm going to a little bit more on the Russell James study, just because you and I are philanthropy geeks here. One of the he said basically is because we don't have documents, right? It's because the Black community, the Black families do not go to the estate planning attorneys and do those documents, and that's why there's very limited philanthropic gifts to the community. So how do we, encourage the public to go and see the estate planning attorney? And Shakisha and Terrence talked about education, but what else is there? What can we do more?
Yeah, you're right. And Dr. Russell James, he did point out that the charitable spirit giving is there. Where it fails is there's no documentation. There's no bequest, there's no will. So it doesn't follow through when someone passes away. They've been giving their entire life. They love their church, but when they pass away, there's nothing in writing to continue that sort of giving. A legacy gift, it's not there. The educational piece, which is why we here we're having this conversation. It's so important. If one person is touched by this conversation and it moves them to do some planning and inform the next person, I think in the Black community, it will take almost like a grassroots effort. We're gonna have to each one teach one. My mom told me, when you know better, Aquanetta, you do better. So everyone here, you have a charge. You know that we can do better. You know that if you are an advisor, you can help your clients to do better. I think it's gonna be a one-off in many situations. Referrals that will come through. It's not going to be a quick fix. There are a lot of issues that we talked about here today. But I would say advisors, talk to your clients about their estate planning. Don't dismiss it, because we do have, I believe, an obligation now that we know better.
Shakisha, I know you want to jump in here.
I do. So I have the pleasure of serving on the board of the Young Black and Giving Back Institute. It's a 501c3 that is equipping young millennial change makers to give back. And one of the things that we have realized is, yes, we should be having more of these conversations. And I find that it's even helpful to be having these conversations at the organizational level as well as at the ground level. So one of the things Terrence mentioned was that he goes to churches. We also presented a lot of churches. And so what that means is that when church members come to us, we can easily say, as a part of their estate plan, are you considering also giving back to your church and getting the church in there? We've done, I've done private groups where we talk about this, right? Like we talk about the fact that charitable giving is a big deal in our community. You're not going to give charitably because the law doesn't provide for it. And, in the legal scheme, if you die without a will, like nothing's going to charity. It's either going to your kin or it's going to the state. Like it says, there's no in between there, right? But also I have found in Aquanet, I don't know if you can talk to this, but in addition to religious organizations, in addition to education, I also have Howard in my estate plan and my church in my estate plan, even though I didn't go to Howard, my parents did, my older sister did. Another organization I found this really helpful is fraternities and sororities. Like we have done a number of presentations with fraternities and sororities. And then when their members come, I get to ask them, like, are you interested in also giving back to your sorority or to your fraternity? And how do you want to incorporate them into your estate plan? When we talk to people who are veterans, right? So again, this is about the holistic approach that estate planners typically take, which is, I'm not just going to ask you who gets what, but because I've already asked you who you are, what matters to you, how you spend your time. If you tell me that you're a veteran and we're now doing your will or your trust, I'm going to ask you if there's anything that you want to give to organizations who serve veterans. And at this point, we're now building a list that when someone wants to give charitably but can't think of something, I'm like, okay, well, are we giving to children? Are we giving to single moms? Are we giving to single fathers? Are we giving to parents? Are we giving to, and we got an organization. Well, think about this organization. This organization does this. And so when a client comes to me and they tell us about organizations that they're involved in during their lifetime, we add it to the list. And so that when you're working with an estate planner like that, it helps, again, what Terrence talked about with communities. Like our tagline at the Griffin Firm is empowering communities one family at a time, because that's what happens, is that even at the individual level, collectively, what we're doing when we all come together and serve our clients is the community benefits from it. Right. And so I just love that you were talking about that, Aquanetta, because it's such a big part of estate planning. And I'm sure Terrence can talk to this too, about how much our clients do give back charitably. But even as estate planners, we are suggesting that to them. Is there anything that you want to give back charitably? Any organization that you love, that you've been supporting, that you want to give a gift to when you pass?
Great. We have some questions in the chat here, and there's a question about the use of permanent life insurance in estate planning today. Any of you want to take a stab at it? So can you talk more about the use of permanent life insurance in estate planning today?
Yeah, for sure. Estate planning involves all your assets, and we're trying to, of the four things I mentioned, build and help them maintain their estate. Insurance in general is a significant component. Now, I am not in either house of that internal insurance debate about whether term or permanent is better. I think both of them are great depending on the person's situation and their goals. Permanent life insurance being another component of their plan, of course, it helps support a death benefit or a post-life benefit for their children, heirs, or beneficiaries. But also it can have a during your life benefit if it's building appropriately a cash value component that they can pull from when they need money, retirement or otherwise. And so permanent insurance within a plan can be a very strategic way to reach goals. On yesterday's segment, when we were talking about top tips for attorneys, Aquanetta talked a lot about how sometimes it may be beneficial for tax purposes to use an insurance product to distribute to a beneficiary, as opposed to using a tax deferred qualified account. like a 401k or traditional IRA or something like that. And she's right on point. And that's a great way to combine multiple things that we're talking about. Giving philanthropically, I'm sorry. Maybe you want to give something to a church or to Howard University or whoever it is. And maybe you also want a similar amount to go to your child. Maybe it makes more sense to use a product like an insurance product, even permanent insurance, to gift that or to give that to the child and give the tax deferred account to the charity so that the child isn't suffering from the tax impact because that insurance won't be taxed. So there are a lot of different things that we as estate planning attorneys will do to help put the person in the best possible scenario to reach the goals that they're trying to accomplish. And a true, and I underscore true, estate planning attorney, not just your friend who says they can do it, a true estate planning attorney should be well equipped to help talk you through those things and even bring in the professionals that can help you get it done.
And I want to add on to this because I think that sometimes, and this is one of those cultural differences. I'm going to tell you a very brief story. So I was talking to another Black estate planner because we send clients to each other. So she's out in California, and she told the story about how a client came to her and wanted to do like a trust, had heard about a trust, but wasn't really sure about it, and had heard about it, but had some land and wanted to make sure it got passed down. And he went to a white estate planning attorney, and the person was like, you don't have enough money to use trust to meet your goals. So like, you got this land, but you don't need a trust because you don't have enough money. So when we talk about the cultural nuances of serving Black wealth and about protecting property and knowing that certain kinds of estate planning tools like trusts are more helpful for protecting property between generations, avoiding probate and all the costs that are associated with it, thinking about, who in our family has money to pay probate fees or to qualify for bond or to deal with those sort of things. Those are the kind of cultural nuances. When that client came to her, she did do a trust for him because she was able to show him how that was going to help to achieve his goals. So when you're talking about life insurance and that kind of thing, sometimes families don't have anything but life insurance as a wealth building tool. And so sometimes when we're thinking about trust and that kind of stuff, we're thinking about, well, okay, how do you want to use this life insurance? And then do we need to use a trust in order to do it and combine the trust and the life insurance and use that all together? But I have had some clients who have come to me and said, I talked to my financial planner, I just need a will. And, I look at what their goals are because I'm not just looking at what they have for finances. I mean, it is important to know what the assets are. That helps you to achieve those goals. But sometimes goals that clients have require the use of different estate planning tools. So I stick a pin in there to say that as an advisor, I stay in my lane for estate planning. And I talk about the law and the impact of the law and what we need to do in the law. But I'm not going to tell someone, just like Terrence said, to choose term or permanent, because there's so many other factors that go into it that really a life insurance advisor who's certified in that is more qualified to talk about. So even when we're all working together, let's work together in an intentional way that, when you do pass your clients on to the next type of advisor, that what you're saying to them does not limit what that advisor can then do for them.
Can I just add, I promise I'll go 30 seconds and I'll be quiet. I promise. Somebody time me. I wish we had 20 more minutes to talk about what Shakisha just said. Staying in our lanes is crucial. I can't count the number of times that I've had someone come to me with an LLC built by their financial advisor, and it's incomplete, guaranteed when it comes to me. We should be doing that. Just like I'm not going to advise them on where to invest their money, which types of vehicles to use. I'll tell them, here's something to consider, but I don't know, this is the person you need to see. The best scenario is for all of us to be at that table together, all of us helping that person out. The financial advisor, the tax person, even the property and casualty insurance person, along with the lawyer, and all of us comment on what we are experts in and not what someone else is an expert in.
I think we're close to time. I'm going to wrap up. I just appreciate all that you have shared. And one thing I also wanted to let you know that one thing, estate planning attorneys are the trusted advisors for the family. And with what's been happening in the past 18 months, right? The world has changed between COVID and racial reckoning and all that. I think all of you, the three of you, have a tougher job because you are the trusted advisor. I'm sure they've turned to you for a lot of guidance and advice in the past 18 months. So thank you for being the estate planning attorneys and the philanthropic advisors that you are. And I'm sure if you have questions, please feel free to email us. We're happy to take them. And again, thank you to the National Bar Association for putting this on. It was a great pleasure to be here with you all.
Professor, thank you so much. You've done a great job facilitating this discussion. I'm inspired and excited about just what I've heard today. And I got to say, I'm going to brag because I didn't put them together, so I can't take credit for it. But in the Real Property Trust and Estate section of the National Bar, we have some dynamic attorneys, and they've been presenting this week all week. I've been amazed and pleasantly surprised and just feel good that I'm associated with the people who've been here and those that didn't even get to present this week. There's more. So wherever you are in the country, whether you're an advisor, whether you're a lawyer from yesterday, or just someone watching because you're intentional about building your situation and improving your situation, thank you for joining us this week. But also know, if you need an estate planning attorney, if you don't already have one that sounds like an attorney that we've described for you today, contact our organization. We will put you in touch with an attorney. If we have one in your state, which we have them in most states, we will put you in touch with somebody if we can. And then if not, then we'll just help you if we can in one way or another. Thank you, Professor, for your time today. Shakisha, great job, phenomenal, great job today. Thank you for your time. Aquanetta, you've just done a dynamic job. You have, Aquanetta put this whole week together. She chaired the subcommittee that's responsible for this week, and she did above and beyond. She went above and beyond Call of Duty. So thank you so much to every attorney that's presented with us this week. We appreciate you. The National Bar Board members that were here this week, we appreciate you all as well. And of course, to our sponsors from this week, we appreciate you all as well. Thank you. This has been a great week, everybody. It is still Estate Planning Awareness Week. Read some material, contact an attorney. And last thing, and I said this, I think it was yesterday, please do not let the month of October pass and you have not contacted an estate planning attorney to schedule a meeting for yourself. This is crucial stuff. This is not the kind of thing that you want to put off for later. This is something you want to take care of right now. Do not let October end and you have not contacted an attorney in your state who specializes in estate planning to schedule a meeting so that you can get your business taken care of. It is that important. With that, we're going to close out. Thank you to the National Bar as well for supporting us. Kyle and the gang, thank you all for everything you've done this week. You've done excellent. It's just been great. That will end the National Bar Association's Real Property Trust and Estate section estate planning awareness events of this week. Be on the lookout. We have a ton of things coming down the pipeline. We're going to be doing more things throughout the year, sharing information. However you found out about this, look there again continuously, and eventually there will be an advertisement coming up about our next event. So thank you all, everybody. I'll stop talking now and send us out of here.